This is the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast, hosted by David Charlton, and you're listening to this podcast to help you build your own mental toughness, or so that you can support other people or your clients better. Either way, you will learn more about developing this plastic personality trait that all but guarantees that you will perform better and lead a more prosperous life. Hi there, today's episode is 199. That's right, we're getting closer to that magical 200 mark, which I'm very proud of. It hasn't been an easy journey, far from it. It hasn't half tested my commitment to get to 200, or certainly to 199. It's tested my mental toughness on occasions too, I've got to admit that. But when you enjoy doing something, and I've got to say it is one of the most pleasurable things about my work, it really does help. And what makes it even more satisfying though is the nice feedback, some of the nice comments that I often get. So a big thank you if you have taken the time out over the last few years to get in touch with some encouraging words. It really does mean a lot to me. Now, on to today. So today's episode I thoroughly enjoyed too. I'm fortunate to have spent around about 30 minutes in the company of Audrie Woodhouse. Audrie, well, she was a fabulous actress and performer, and now she's gone on to be a successful coach and speaking consultant. So Audrie goes on to share with you some great ideas when it comes down to communication skills and public speaking, especially when we consider leaders and the key elements of leadership communication. It's going to be a helpful episode too for those who dread speaking, who get very nervous when they speak in groups, as we go on to talk about managing state, channeling your focus, as well as a whole lot more. So hi Audrie, it's lovely to see you today. Would you be able to share with the listeners a little bit about your background and then your desire to help leaders with their communication skills and public speaking?
Yes, hi. Thank you very much for having me, David. It's interesting, isn't it? I'm a leader now. I lead my own business and I work with leaders and executives on a regular basis. And yet still I get the wobbles when I speak. I still get negative mind chatter when I think about the fact that I've got to stand up in front of an audience and deliver my speech. And yet I'm the one who teaches people how to do that well. I'm the one that's been on the professional stage as a performer since I was 16. So that's more than 30 years of standing in front of audiences. And I still feel that way. And that's why I'm passionate about what I do, because I want to be able to help others to still get up on that stage, still present, speak with eloquence and clarity and get their message across in a powerful and impactful way. And we don't know when the negativity is going to creep in. When life is going to drop a bomb on us and suddenly it becomes difficult for us to speak and articulate ourselves. And so that's what I'm here for. I'm here to make sure that we can always deliver no matter what. The other side of it as well, I have to admit, is I was incredibly shy when I was young. So I'm so aware of how difficult it is for some of us to speak. And I know those people, I know how they feel, and I feel really passionately about helping those people to take the spotlight as well, if of course they want to. So yes, hopefully that answers a bit of your question.
It certainly does. On that theme where you talk about people who I suppose have difficulties speaking, and they need to harness the nerves and beat the anxiety. Do you want to share with the listeners a little bit about how you go about supporting them?
Yes. So I think you might first think when you come to somebody like me that I am going to teach you all the tips, the tricks, the techniques, the disciplines which help you to speak as a professional and deliver a seamless speech. Actually, those things are the icing on the cake. For me, the real work comes in getting to know yourself really well, understanding what it is you're passionate about, what's valuable to you, what you really care about, and what you want to say to the world through your message, through the speech that you deliver. Sometimes you might be speaking about something that doesn't give you an opportunity to speak about how you feel about the world and your values and beliefs, etc. But still, you need to harness those in order to decide how you want to come across, decide how you want to be seen and heard. So a lot of my work actually works on the person first. There's an awful lot of self-discovery and personal development, and also learning to write your own story so that you have your true, authentic voice. And do you know what? Once you've got those things, it's so easy to then stand up and speak on any subject because you're showing up as you without apology. And that is the key to successful speaking.
So I suppose what I'm hearing there is self-awareness is critical in this. And that obviously crosses over with the authenticity piece. Do you want to just talk a little bit more about authenticity and speaking then?
Yes. Authenticity is a difficult word, isn't it? Because I think it's used a lot at the moment. So it feels like a jargon word. It feels like, oh yeah, we're being authentic. But it's important. We need to think really deeply about how we show up and how we voice our thoughts, our opinions, and assertions on the world or on a particular subject and in a particular context. What I've seen over my years in performance, working on stage, TV, media, and with my speakers, and going out to do a lot of research and consider the disciplines of speaking, I've seen an awful lot of inauthenticity, and that causes a great deal of problems because when we don't believe a speaker, we don't want to follow them. We struggle to buy into what they have to say. We struggle to believe in their message. And this causes great problems. If we think about our world leaders, we know when they stand up and speak on something that they care very little about, or that they haven't thought through enough, they haven't lined with their own values and beliefs, they're not giving us their personal perspective, sharing their feelings and opinions on that subject. It's just very on the surface stuff that they think people want to hear. When we hear speeches like that, we are so suspicious. We have a very natural animalistic intuition when it comes to listening to people speak, and we can see right through inauthenticity. So bringing our integrity to a speech and our truth when we speak on a subject is so important.
Yeah, it just has me thinking about politicians and the difficulties that they'll have with their speaking, but ultimately as well with some of them, I'm not going to mention names, just the lack of respect that they're actually shown by the general public. And as you say, a lot of that will be down to the messages that they're conveying.
Yeah. Often politicians are under an awful lot of pressure, and they do have advisors, speechwriters, communication strategists to help them come up with the right things to say. However, that's not always effective. Time pressures get in the way. Our leaders are human beings, and often their true identity does shine through regardless of the support that they get. Sometimes these leaders are ill-advised, and I think that's when we get a poor speech. Actually, just to bring in a name, it's very interesting when you look at a speaker like Jacinda Ardern and her exit speech. She clearly wrote that speech herself, which is great. We trust it straight away. She was extremely vulnerable in that speech. She exposed her vulnerability and said that she would do it anyway. She read from a piece of paper. So it wasn't, well rehearsed. It wasn't a perfect display of oracy and practice and rehearsal. It was like, this is what I've written and this is what I'm going to say. And I actually today need this piece of paper to remind me of my words. And so really in its imperfection, it was perfect. She brought in specific names. She, really connected with the house when she was speaking. There were so many aspects of that speech which were so impactful that actually it became a topic of discussion. And actually, she was celebrated for having written her own speech and not having a speechwriter write for her. So to me, that was a display of total authenticity.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because you talked about the paper there and people having notes. I can imagine to some people that's a no. I can't actually do that. But as you say, actually, it probably helps building that connection and that relationship.
Yeah, it's all about context and situation. Often when I'm training people to speak and present, I encourage them to take away that piece of paper, to know what they're going to say and to be able to make eye contact, display brilliant stage presence and craft when they're presenting, know how to use all of their tech and rehearse with their slides and make sure that everything is absolutely perfect paper, or even standing at a podium or a lectern, just to take away that barrier and really connect with your audience. All of those things are really key to a perfect presentation. But essentially, if you have all of that down and it's completely perfect, but you are not aligned with and you don't believe in the words you are saying, the audience smell it straight away. So you lose that connection with your audience. It's all about them. It's all about the audience. It's all about what you bring to them. If they show up to listen, you have to have something honest and powerful to give them, to take away. Essentially, when you stand up to speak, you would like your audience to go away with a call to action, to feel changed, to have experienced an emotion, to think differently, to feel motivated, inspired. The only way that you can do that is by connecting with them and aligning with them and helping them feel relaxed and ready to hear what you have to say, so that all of those ingredients can come together and they go away feeling better than they did when they arrived. And that's quite difficult to do.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. You talked about pressure and stressors for leaders and people that you help. So some people, I can imagine, when they do go on the stage or when they're going to perform a speech, their state isn't exactly going to be in maybe the optimal zone, if you like. How do you go about helping them manage their state in that respect?
So the first thing I talk about when I'm teaching anybody to speak is managing their state. And breath is the key. We always start with breath. Quite often when we're under pressure, even when we're excited, even when we're raring to go, breath can fly out of the window and we revert to a shallow breath. And that shallow breath can cause us a great deal of problems when we speak. So when we're thinking about a shallow breath, what it can do is it can tighten up the shoulders, it can tighten up the neck and the jaw, and that can give us a sore throat if we have to talk for a long time, but it can also make us look incredibly tense. And it might be that we are, but if we can change our breath into a full breath using the lower lungs, it immediately takes tension away from our neck, shoulders, and throat. And we're allowed to appear more confident, even if we actually are not. So we could have the effect of the opera singer whose lungs are working incredibly hard below, but we see the beauty of the softness of the arms and the long, beautiful notes coming out of that opera singer. And it's the breath and the mechanics down below that are allowing us to see that beauty up above. Same with the swan, the legs going like crazy underneath the water, but floating smoothly and gracefully along the top. And that's what breath allows us to do when we speak. Clarity of thought as well. So if you've got an oxygenated brain, it's so much easier for us to think more clearly and to deliver the words and the speech and the message that we went there to deliver.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people don't know actually how to breathe properly as well, and how they'll try and breathe through their chest, won't they?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Often we'll start this exercise and I'll say breathe in for 4 and out for 8. And that's the easiest one. And some even struggle to get to 8 without tightening up. So that's when I know we've got so much work to do. And it's not because they can't do it. It's because they haven't used their lungs to full capacity for such a long period of time that their brain no longer knows how to tell them how to do it. Usually within a few rounds, we're up to 8. But I encourage my speakers to be able to breathe out way beyond 20. You know, we're aiming for 22, 24 and beyond. Because when you have more breath in your body as well, you can give the same amount of energy at the end of the line as you had at the beginning. So the interesting stuff, the actual point of your sentence, of your message, gets power at the end. And the English are terrible for it. What we'll tend to do is drop off at the end of the line, off the end of a cliff as well. So the energy drops, the breath drops, and the tone drops. So often we can turn something really positive into a negative just by having a lack of energy, a lack of breath in the body. So it's so important, so important.
It's fascinating. That takes us on to, I suppose, body language and tone, which, reading from your website there, they're real key elements of public speaking, aren't they?
Yeah. Body language is something which is really important to me because I spent a huge part of my career performing in mask. And it was full mask as well. So if you're not used to mask theatre, you would literally perform a play with a mask on for the whole time. Sometimes you'd work in half a mask, so you did make sounds, but they were the sounds that were applicable for the mask, sometimes not even words. And with a full mask, you wouldn't make any sound at all. And I was doing full tours, like year-long tours, in full-length plays in full mask, so not a word was spoken. The whole narrative, the whole story was delivered through body language. So for me, my eyes are drawn to a speaker's body, what the rest of the body is doing when they speak. And does it match up with the voice? Is it telling the full story of the words that are coming out of the speaker's mouth? From your big toe right to the last hair on your head. What is your body telling the audience? Body language is so important in building rapport as well, helping an audience to feel relaxed, creating an atmosphere, using gesture to, emphasize your words and your message and your emotion. So yeah, body language is so important to me. And actually body language and expression helps to change tone. So you mentioned tone there. We want as much light and shade, is what I call it, when we speak. The more shift and change in tone that we have, the more interested the ear is to what you have to say. If it's monotone, or we will all remember listening to a speech at some point, whether it was at school, at university, or at work, where someone is delivering a speech and it's monotone, it's the same, and it drones on, and we start to get a little bit sleepy and sidetracked, and our brain is wandering to a different place. Often that's not our fault. Often it's the fault of the speaker, because when it's all on one note, our brain and our ears are telling us it's all the same information. Therefore, we don't need to keep listening. But if we shift the tone constantly, the ear is interested, the brain is going, oh, this is something different. Okay, we're on to something new, and we're adapting and moving with it. So it stays dynamic and interesting for us.
That must take quite a lot of training to be able to master that skill.
I think it does. Yes. I'm thinking about my acting career. So obviously for me, it feels really natural to me to emphasize words, to think about pause, changes in pace, using my whole body. Of course, it's natural to me. So after you've been doing it for quite a while, it's very easy for you to just naturally speak in such a way. If you're not used to it, or if you're not, if you don't speak like that intuitively, it can take a little bit of time. But once you've got it and you keep using that skill, it becomes very, very easy. So yeah, there was a bit of a pause there, because I think once you start to think about the way you speak, have self-awareness, and use some of the tips that I teach, it's very easy to then carry on and for it to become part of the way that you speak in general.
Yeah, and as you touched on there, obviously practice, regardless of whether it's body language or the tone of your voice, whether it's breathing, That is the key in all of this, isn't it? Bit by bit, building like very good habits.
Yeah. The way to do it bit by bit is to keep speaking. You only learn to speak by speaking. So you've got that difficult decision to make. Do you stay afraid of speaking by not speaking, or do you speak more to be less afraid? Hopefully it's the latter. Honestly, it gets easier and easier the more you do it. And I'm speaking from experience. If I go for long periods of time where I haven't spoken in public, it's much harder for me to get back into the driving seat and do it. So the same applies for everyone, I'm sure. The more we do it, the easier it gets, the more confident we get. And we learn the tricks, the tips, the disciplines as we go. And we've got to go easy on ourselves. If we're not experienced, if we're not confident, if it's new to us, it might not be as perfect as we want it to be the first time or the second time. But we need to be reassured that we're going to be making progress step by step. You will get better and better. And there is a big difference, a huge difference even, between somebody who has spoken once to somebody who has spoken 5 times. The change is huge. That's only 5 speeches away. It's dramatic, the change. It's just a case of doing it.
I can see the similarities in our work. When I'm working with an athlete, I'll often talk about having a challenge mindset. So they'll view a situation as a challenge as opposed to a threat. And then you talk there about, in effect, continuous improvement. That's critical. And I'm going to throw in a third one. That certainly the athlete can be a perfectionist on occasions, in all honesty. So they find it very, very difficult to be kind to themselves, and I suppose they get the results out of proportion in their own minds. And I can imagine as a speaker with the emotion involved, and if you feel embarrassed or you've had a bad performance, then yeah, that must be quite difficult to handle at times.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. Often with the physical challenge, it's the mind which we need to master over and above the body, the technique, the skill. If we can get the mindset right, if we can put ourselves in a position of, I'm going to do it anyway, and I know that I will improve dramatically by just doing it anyway, then we're onto something really good. It's a challenge in itself to let go of that. And I do have some experience of that, obviously, with coming from a professional dancer background first. That was my first job, fighting against my body and my mindset many times just to get myself out there on the stage, or putting myself through auditions and believing at the time that everybody else in that room was better than me, and then having to take myself away, have a really good chat with myself to get my mind in a great place so that my dance ability was better and that I would get the job that I was seeking. So I totally appreciate and understand the internal battle that we have when we're developing, when we're striving, when we want to be the best at what we do. We just have to go easy on ourselves and understand that to be the best, we have to be in the game. We have to just get stuck in there, don't we?
Yeah, most definitely. On that theme where you talk about other people, what would your message be to the person who, I'm going to call it comparisonitis? They have comparisonitis where they're comparing themselves against others, and I suppose they put themselves down as a result.
So people have actually said to me at times, wow, you're so competitive. And I say there isn't any part of me, not a bone in my body, that is competitive. I am ambitious though, and I feel there is a difference. I never feel like I'm competing because everybody has their own race to run. Everybody has their own challenges. Everybody has their own ambition and aspiration. And I get to a point with something where I take the baton and I no longer care about anybody else around me. I care about my own race which I'm running. And it's my ambition that gets me to the end point. It's not the comparison. It's not the competitiveness. It's not worrying about what others are doing alongside me, ahead of me, behind me. It's about my mindset and how I get to the end in the way that I want to get there. And that has been the thing that has taken me from one step to the next. What I want to do with my own life, how I'm going to reach my own goals, how I'm going to choose to be seen when I walk into a room or onto a stage or in conversation with somebody, how I'm going to be respected, understood. All of those things are really important to me, and they will stay that way regardless of who is around me and what they are saying. So sometimes I even have to go back and give myself a little bit of a chat about that, but it is actually true about me and how I believe about myself and my own race. And I would love other people to feel the same way. On the same note, this goes right back to being authentic, deciding how you want to exist in the world. You know, you might not even want to make any changes to the world. You might not want to be in the spotlight. You might not want to save the world. You might not want to do any of those things, but you do have a choice, and the choice is to show up in the way that you want to be seen and to be understood in that way. And I think if we have that, then we're onto something really great. If we start to try and please other people, if we start to try and emulate them and do exactly what they've done, we will find ourselves misaligned and not working true to ourselves. And that is when we fall down. We feel uncomfortable, but people around us feel uncomfortable as well, because we know it's not quite right. We know we're not quite fitting in that round hole in the way that we should.
Yes, there's something about that, isn't there? Being able to place those external factors and the outcome of your performance to one side, and then just to be able to concentrate essentially on the things that you can control and the key ingredients that make up that strong performance.
Yeah. I think it comes with age and experience, though. I do remember, as I said, those times in the auditions when I'm thinking there was so much more experience. They've got X, they've got Y, they've got Z. And learning to take myself away and have that chat and say, it doesn't actually matter. Just do what you do the way you do it and believe in that. Just go and do that. Because when you walk out of that audition, when you walk out of that room, you will know that you've done it in the best way you know how, in your way. And that's the best you can do. It takes time to listen to that voice and to trust it.
Yeah, trust is the key word in that, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've loved this conversation. Would you be able to share with the listeners 3 key takeaways that they can divulge?
Yes. Sadly, I feel like I've already said them. So it's a repetition, but repetition is key in terms of embedding some of the disciplines. So one of them is breathe deeply, breathe often, breathe deeply, master your breath. It won't just help you with your speaking. It will help you with managing your state, building rapport with others, coming across as confident, all of the things that I've talked about and more. It's key for showing up in the world confidently, but it's key for your health and everything as well. So breathing, authenticity, be true to yourself, get to grips with where you're going. What are your goals, your aspirations? I have no care as to whether they're big or small. Just know what you want and you do you. Show up as you. Authenticity is key. The third one is speak. If you want to be a great speaker, get to grips with speaking. Speak more. Speak as often as you can. Let go of whether it's brilliant or terrible to begin with. Just speak as often as you can. Woven into that third one, I think, is preparedness. Okay, so prepare. But you can't do that unless you're speaking. So just get speaking, and that will help you to be more prepared.
It's fabulous, that is. So whereabouts can the listeners find you should they want to ask any questions or find out a bit more about your work?
Yes, so I'm on social media, obviously. The best platform for me is LinkedIn. You can personal message me there. You can send me a message anytime there. Also, I have a newsletter, so you could sign up to my newsletter. And if you search Audrie Woodhouse on LinkedIn, you'll find me there easily enough.
Brilliant. Well, yeah, a big thank you for your time today, Audrie. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
I've absolutely loved it. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, that was hugely enlightening from Audrie. It's always nice to get a different angle away from my natural tendency to deviate towards sport. There's most definitely an overlap between the two fields, whether you're an actress or speaker, an athlete or a coach, or someone who has to speak in front of a large number of people for their work. Nerves and performance anxiety, well, they're common for everyone. So it was nice to hear Audrie's thoughts on how to prepare yourself, and it especially resonated with me, the power of breathing. Being able to monitor your breath. And it's something that I try to get over to my clients time and time again. Most likely because I'm also someone who has come across the benefits of breathing. It's something that I do daily. It's something that I do when I'm freezing my nuts off in my ice bath at home, in the garden every morning. And with regards to breathing and breath work and cold water therapy there and freezing your nuts off, you can expect in the coming weeks there will be some episodes that link to this. There's no doubt that both are connected with different measures of mental toughness, be that emotional control or commitment. As was the case today with Audrie's episode, where certainly interpersonal confidence and confidence were big themes, as well as naturally the emotional control element too. Anyway, for now though, that's us done for today. Before I go, I do want to just apologise for the slight audio issues that Audrie had there. I really hope it didn't spoil your enjoyment of the podcast episode. Enjoy your day. If you enjoyed this episode of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with David Charlton, do check out my website, sport-excellence.co.uk, and my online sport psychology resources. The Sport-Excellence website has essential resources for anyone looking to build their own mental toughness or the mental toughness of their athletes or teams, or if you want to achieve peak performance more often or optimal functioning. The Sport Excellence website has everything you need to keep moving forward and thrive. So go on, head over to sport-excellence.co.uk to find out more.